I watched her from across the gym for months. Powerful, untouchable, focused. I never thought she'd even look at me. But one morning, I asked if she needed a spot, and everything changed. If this story stirs something in you, and you want to hear more sensual, slow-burn queer stories, hit the subscribe button. I post daily, and it's just me here, crafting every word, every story, for you. I'd watched her from behind the squat rack for months, convincing myself she'd never notice someone like me. But the day she nearly dropped that barbell, I caught more than just the weight. I'd memorized the rhythm of her workouts before I ever heard her speak. Adriana Vale. I didn't know her name at the time. I just called her the girl by the leg press in my head. She moved like she belonged to that space, like the air parted for her. Steady, unbothered. Her body carved with quiet purpose. Her jawline set like she was always listening to something inside her that no one else could hear. And I watched. Not in a creepy way, I hope. It was more like studying. I watched the way she tightened her lifting belt, the way she adjusted the barbell with the smallest shift of her wrist, the faint exhale when she pushed past a heavy rep. There was something poetic about her control, her restraint. I never saw her check the mirror. I noticed her first in March, on a gray Tuesday morning when everything in my life was still unraveling. The gym had become my refuge. It was either that or keep spiraling. The end of my relationship hadn't been dramatic, just drawn out and pathetic in that cold, slow-motion way heartbreak can be. I'd been with someone who made me feel like I was always asking for too much. Eventually, I stopped asking. When it was finally over, I needed somewhere to put all the noise. The gym gave me repetition, structure, pain I could control. That morning, I dragged myself in before 7 a.m., like always, still half asleep and bitter about the cardio I never planned to do. And there she was, Adriana, in a charcoal crop top and fitted leggings, legs planted wide as she adjusted the plates on the leg press. Her dark hair was pulled back into a long braid, the tail of it dusting her spine like a paintbrush. She didn't look at me. She never did. For weeks, we coexisted. I did my workouts. She did hers. We never exchanged words. She was the kind of woman who looked like she already had someone who massaged the tension from her shoulders at night, who understood when to talk and when to stay quiet. And I was just me, Nina Orlova, quiet, stiff, trying to glue my self-worth back together with sweat and discipline. I wore the same 3 pairs of leggings and never made eye contact with anyone. I kept a tiny journal in my gym bag that I filled with workout notes, songs that made me feel alive again, and sometimes tiny confessions I'd never say out loud. Like, I think she smells like clean skin and metal, and I hate how often I think about it. Or, I wonder what it would take for her to notice me. Trip over a dumbbell? Burst into flames? I didn't think I'd ever have the nerve to talk to her. But then, one morning in early June, the opportunity didn't ask. It just showed up. I was standing by the squat rack, cooling down, towel draped over my neck, like I actually knew what I was doing. I glanced over just as Adriana was setting up for a heavy hip thrust, multiple plates on each side, barbell across her hips. Her brow was furrowed in focus, but something in her shoulders said she was unsure. She'd added too much. Her breathing was shallow. She adjusted her position, lifted once, then dropped it back with a grunt. And something in me, something braver than usual, moved before I could think. Do you want a spot? Her head turned so fast it startled me. Up close, her eyes were lighter than I expected. Amber, like honey backlit by morning sun. She blinked, surprised. What? I cleared my throat, instantly regretting everything. Just, if you're lifting heavy, I can help with the bar. A long pause. Her gaze traveled over me, assessing. Not judgmental, just curious. Her lips parted, then curved. Yeah, sure. That'd be great. She shifted to make space, and I moved behind her, nervous and hyper-aware of every inch of space between us. I watched her form, bracing myself in case she needed help. She lifted, this time with focus, and I stayed alert, barely touching the bar, but letting her know I was there. "You've got it," I said softly. She finished the set, breathed hard. I handed her a towel without thinking. "Thanks," she said, looking up. "I usually don't mess up my own weight guesses." "You didn't mess up," I said, somehow managing not to choke. "You just needed backup. We all do sometimes." A tiny smile tugged at her mouth, and for the first time since I'd seen her, Adriana Vale looked directly at me. "What's your name?" "Nina," I said. "I'm Adriana." I nodded like I didn't already know. She held my gaze a moment longer, then shifted. "You train mornings often?" "Every day. Same time." "Then maybe I'll see you again." And she walked off, sweat slick and steady, her braids swaying behind her. I stood there in stunned silence, heart pounding like I'd just deadlifted a truck. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I spotted her today, literally, and she smiled at me like I was someone. I hope I didn't imagine it." I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I arrived early. Not to see her, I told myself, but because I had legs to train. Obviously, the place was quiet, humid with early summer air, and I was doing calf raises when I felt it. A presence behind me. "You training quads today?" she asked. I turned. Adriana, still in her braid, still perfect. "Yep," I said. "You?" "Same. I could use a spot again." She didn't need one, but I nodded anyway. We trained together that day. Not fully, just hovering, exchanging tips, correcting posture, laughing softly at our own grunts. It was nothing, but it wasn't. Something had shifted. The silence between us had cracked open just enough for light to get in. That night, I wrote, "She asked for my help again. I think I might be in trouble." Adriana showed up again the next day, and the day after that. We never made a plan. She just appeared beside me, sometimes mid-set, sometimes with her water bottle in hand, and that unreadable half-smile that made my breath catch. "You training push today?" "Yeah." "Chest and shoulders?" "Perfect. I'll warm up with you." And just like that, she was part of my mornings. As if she'd always been there, tucked between the mirror and the clanking of plates, the faint music playing overhead, the static hum of the gym lights. I don't know when helping her became routine. It was like muscle memory. We moved around each other without needing to speak. She spotted me during incline bench. I corrected her back angle on the lat pull-down. She tied my hair up with a spare elastic when mine snapped mid-workout. That one left me stunned for the rest of the session. She didn't flirt, not really. But the way her fingers lingered on my shoulder after fixing my posture, the way her eyes would flick down when I stretched, those weren't nothing. I wanted to say something, anything. But every time I got close, my courage evaporated in the haze of protein shakes and pre-workout sweat. Then came the Friday session, late June. It was leg day again, and we were both pushing heavier. Adriana had added a set of Bulgarian split squats I hadn't seen her do before. I joked that she was trying to show off. She smirked, her eyes glinting with something I hadn't seen before. "Maybe I am," she said. "Depends on who's watching." My heart nearly stopped. That night, I didn't even pretend not to journal about her. "She's flirting, I think. God, I hope I'm not imagining this." I keep replaying her hand on my back, the warmth, the calm, and something else, like she wanted to say more but didn't. We didn't talk about anything important until the following Wednesday. It was a slower morning, the gym quieter than usual. We were stretching on the mats. Adriana lay on her back, one leg bent, pulling it toward her chest. I watched her profile, serene but distant. Were you an athlete? I asked. She turned her head. Yeah, used to compete in powerlifting. Regionals, mostly. I thought it was going to be my whole life. What happened? She hesitated. Tore my ACL 2 years ago. Bad rehab. Sponsorship dropped. I quit. I blinked. That's brutal. She shrugged like it didn't sting anymore, but the tightness in her jaw said otherwise. I coach now. PT sessions a few times a week. It's not the same, but I still love being here. The iron doesn't lie, you know? I nodded. It's honest. Unlike people. Her eyes met mine. Yeah, exactly. A beat of silence stretched between us. My fingers tightened around my water bottle. I came here after a breakup, I admitted. Needed something that didn't fall apart when I touched it. Adriana sat up slowly, crossing her legs. You talk about it often? No, not really. Me neither, she said, voice softer now. I had someone. Years ago. She left the day after my first national qualifier, said she didn't want to date someone who cared more about lifting than her. I winced. Ouch! She was right in a way. I didn't know how to be soft with her. I didn't know how to let people in. And now? Adriana looked at me carefully, like the next thing she said might land somewhere delicate. I'm trying. I nodded. Me too. After that, things changed. Not in a loud, obvious way, but in the kind of way you feel in your bones. We laughed more. Our silences were warmer. I started wearing a little tinted balm, just in case she noticed. She started waiting for me outside the locker room instead of heading straight to the floor. One day, after I helped her rack a heavy barbell, she placed her palm flat against my lower back. Thanks, she said, but her hand stayed there, just a second too long. I turned around, pulse roaring. You always this touchy after a good set? Her smile was slow. Only when I trust someone. I didn't know what to say, so I looked away and muttered, Careful, you might make me feel special. Adriana's voice dropped low. Maybe you are. I swear my legs forgot how to stand for a second. We were alone in the gym the following Monday. Summer had pushed most regulars to vacation or late-night sessions, and the morning was quiet. Dim light poured in through the tall windows, and everything felt too still, too intimate. She was finishing glute bridges, and I was standing just behind the bench, spotting her. Her forehead was damp, her breathing ragged. She dropped the bar and leaned forward, elbows on her knees. You okay? I asked, handing her a towel. She took it, then looked up at me. I think about you when you're not here. I froze. Sorry, she said, lowering her gaze. That came out weird. No, I said quickly. Just unexpected. Her voice was hoarse. I tried not to, but you're just kind, and I haven't met kind in a while. I sat beside her, close enough to feel the heat radiating off her skin. I think about you too, I whispered. She looked at me, really looked. Then, slowly, she leaned in. Not quite touching, just searching. Is this okay? She asked. I nodded. Her lips met mine, soft and tentative, then deeper. Her hand cupped the side of my neck like I might disappear. I touched her waist, and she shivered under my fingers. We didn't rush. The kiss lingered, then another. Gentle, exploratory, honest. The gym was silent, but for our breath. When we pulled apart, she rested her forehead against mine. I've wanted that for weeks, she said. Me too, I whispered. A soft laugh escaped her lips. God, you're dangerous. I smiled. You have no idea. We didn't speak much after that. Not because it was awkward, but because there was nothing that needed fixing. She showered first. I waited. When I stepped into the locker room, she was there, hair damp, leaning against the tiled wall with that same look of quiet awe I'd seen when she lifted something heavy and made it look easy. She offered her hand, and I took it. That night, my journal entry was short. Her kiss felt like gravity finally letting go, and I think I've been weightless ever since. The showers were still humming when I stepped inside. I had expected silence, the echo of my own breath. But there she was, Adriana. Hair wet, back leaned casually against the pale green tiles, arms crossed over her towel-draped chest. Her eyes met mine like she'd been waiting, not impatiently, but with quiet certainty. Steam curled around her skin, softening the sharp lines of her muscles. She looked strong, yes, but also shy, like someone who wasn't used to wanting and being wanted at the same time. My fingers twitched around the edge of my gym bag. "You didn't leave," I said. "No," she replied. "Didn't feel right." I took a cautious step forward, the floor warm beneath my soles, humid air clinging to my skin. My heart was a drumbeat in my ears. "I keep thinking this is going to disappear," I whispered, like I imagined it. Adriana's lips parted as she pushed off the wall and walked toward me, slowly, deliberately, like each step mattered. "You didn't," she said. She stopped right in front of me, not touching, not yet, just close enough for her breath to mix with mine, for the scent of eucalyptus shampoo and warm water to wrap around me like a fog. "Can I?" she asked, voice low. I nodded. She reached up and tucked a damp strand of my hair behind my ear. Her thumb brushed my jaw, and her hand lingered there. I closed my eyes, and in the quiet, I heard her exhale, a deep, steadying breath, like she needed this moment as badly as I did. The kiss was different this time, slower, less surprised. It carried weight, like we both knew exactly what we were doing and still couldn't quite believe it. My hands moved to her waist. I felt the heat of her, the trembling under the strength. Her fingers slid along my arms, then wrapped behind my neck, pulling me closer. The tile wall met my back a moment later, and we stayed like that, pressed together, steam swirling, skin warming, lips tasting years of longing we hadn't realized we'd held. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't careless. It was a kind of intimacy that required softness, not speed. She rested her forehead against mine when we broke apart. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded, unable to speak just yet. She smiled, really smiled this time, and kissed the corner of my mouth. Her touch was reverent, gentle, as if she wasn't just kissing me, she was learning me. And I let her. We didn't undress completely. There were still boundaries, still the low hum of reality outside the tiles. But in that little sliver of borrowed time, we explored each other in fragments, kisses along collarbones, fingertips grazing damp shoulders, soft gasps caught between laughter and silence. I'd never felt so seen. Afterwards, we sat on the locker room bench, towels wrapped around us, hair dripping, fingers occasionally brushing as we passed each other water or shared a quiet glance. "You're warm when you're not hiding," I said, teasing. Adriana raised an eyebrow. "So you've noticed I hide?" "You wear armor," I said softly. "But it's not who you are. It's just who you had to be." She looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I forget how to take it off." "Well," I said, nudging her knee with mine, "you did a pretty good job tonight." She chuckled, low, velvety. "You're dangerous, Nina." "You've said that." "I mean it." But then something shifted. The next morning, she didn't show. I told myself she probably slept in, or had a client, or was sore from the heavy set we finished together. But then Thursday came, then Friday, and still nothing. I tried not to spiral, but my brain, loyal to old wounds, began constructing narratives of rejection. I'd overstepped. I'd imagined too much. I'd made her uncomfortable. Maybe the kiss meant less to her than it did to me. Maybe I was just another softness she didn't have room for. The gym felt colder without her. I went through the motions, squats, pull-ups, plank holds, but everything was mechanical. Her absence sat in the corner like a shadow. I opened my journal that night and stared at the blank page. For the first time in months, I had nothing to write. Or maybe I had too much. Saturday morning, rain tapping at my window like an impatient friend. I almost didn't go to the gym. Almost stayed curled under my sheets, pretending I didn't care. But then I thought of her, of the look in her eyes after she kissed me, of how carefully her hands had touched me, like she'd been waiting for something safe enough to hold. And I went. I walked into the gym with my hood still on. My headphones were already in when I saw her, leaning against the squat rack like nothing had changed. Except everything had. She looked up and saw me, straightened. Her mouth opened, then closed. I stood there, soaked and unsure. My heart beat out a quiet war between hope and humiliation. She stepped toward me slowly, her expression unreadable. Her eyes were tired, like she hadn't slept much either. We never had a big, "what are we?" conversation. There was no announcement, no dramatic leap into labels or definitions. Instead, there was breakfast after workouts, her picking me up when it rained, my hoodie quietly hanging on the back of her bedroom chair, Sundays with aching legs, and her head on my lap while I read aloud from the dog-eared book she'd started but never finished. She didn't run again. Sometimes she got quiet. She'd stare off in the middle of a lift or retreat into herself mid-conversation. But she always came back, and I never had to knock twice. "I'm not used to being chosen when I'm not performing," she told me once, after a long run by the river. I reached for her hand, fingers sticky with sweat. "You're not a performance. You're a person. One I like." She smiled like she was still learning how to accept that, but she was trying. And I loved her for it. At the gym, we were still just Adriana and Nina. We didn't kiss there. Not much. Maybe a squeeze on the wrist. Maybe a glance that lingered too long. She still lifted like she had something to prove. But afterward, she always looked at me like she didn't need to anymore. "You've gotten stronger," she said one morning, spotting me through my final set of deadlifts. "So have you," I replied. She tilted her head. "No, I mean, stronger here." She touched her chest, just over her heart. "Less guarded." I shrugged. Guess I had a good training partner. We built a kind of quiet life, one made of soft habits and mutual care. She helped me stretch before bed. I left her notes in her meal prep containers. We grocery shopped together. We argued over almond butter brands. It wasn't cinematic, but it was real and steady and safe. And I don't think I'd ever known that kind of love before. The last line in my journal, months after that first kiss, it started with, "Want a spot?" And now she doesn't lift alone. Neither do I.